G'day and welcome back to Pub of Heretics. Today we are going to be talking about what, Corbin?
We are going to be talking about Genestealers Cults.
And hello.
James.
You still hesitated, even though
I am James. Anyway. I am Jeff.
You think you are?
Yes.
I am Jeff.
Alright. Well, since we've done way too much Space Marine stuff lately...
Not enough.
Way too much.
Not enough.
We've definitely done a lot.
So much. I'm going to fall asleep if I have to listen to another fucking Space Marine one.
I think the only, non-Space Marine was, wasn't it the...
Orcs, Votan.
Tyranids.
Tyranids, Orcs, and Votan.
Yeah,
as opposed to,
Diggy Boys.
having to listen to you talk about Death Watch for fucking forever.
Death Watch. One episode.
Yeah, too much.
I love Death Watch.
Yeah, well...
Alright,
Anyway,
what are the Genestealers?
We're going to finally talk about some Xenos. So buckle up, grab your sickle and hammer, because it's communism episode today, boys.
Communism.
Yeah. So James,
Mother Russia.
what do you know about Genestealers Cults?
Well, what I thought I knew about them, I was completely wrong. I thought they were Tyranids that had just evolved with a brain, but apparently that is totally wrong. They're
Not totally wrong.
You're not too far off.
But I thought they were literally Tyranids that had just evolved over time into
You're not wrong.
humanoid.
Technically.
We will go into that. So where you're getting probably mixed up is the difference between Genestealers and Genestealers Cults.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But before we get into that, I have a sick quote. One of my favorite Genestealer quotes.
Before we do that, like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for your help.
We are trying to get up to we're almost at ad monetization, so any likes and subscribes are
Even if you don't like our content, please give it a comment anyways. I'll respond to it, they won't.
Hey, I've been responding to stuff.
I know.
I don't
But
even
anyways,
read your shit.
But we thank you for your support so far. Thanks very much.
Yes.
No.
So, quote away.
Alright. In the sunless body of our hive, the flock of the faithful grows. We are guided by our great Father's sacred vision, protected by his loving hands. Within these holy shadows we dwell, while the impure bathe in the spire-top starlight. And what lies between those stars? What sails beyond the distant suns? Shrouded in night, born within the eternal black, our redeemers, our gods. Truer than the silent, long-dead emperor. The children of the void. We hear them in our dreams, we feel them in our blood. They call and we will answer. We will rise and claim the engines of labor that have bound us in servitude. This world will burn. It will be cleansed, purified, made ready, and the heavens will deliver our reward.
Who said that?
Some weirdo.
Some dude.
A Genestealer
Prophet.
prophet teaching a Clamavis. So, starting off, we will talk about what a Genestealer is. So a Genestealer is actually a Tyranid. It is a humanoid.
I was right.
They're
Yeah.
just like another subspecies is probably the best way to put it.
Yes, so they are a humanoid-looking Tyranid with 4 arms, a bulbous head, and a hard carapace. They have razor-sharp talons that can even slice through Terminator plate armor, and super-sharp teeth. They go ahead of the tendrils of hives to hide on planets and establish cults preparing worlds for their Tyranid masters. They do this by using their tongue to deposit DNA into humans to take over the genetic material. Yes, their tongue goes inside you and they deposit genetic material inside
I thought we
you.
stopped talking about Slanesh.
Yeah. This is very neshy.
Wow. This leaves the victims with no knowledge of this happening and no outward signs of change.
Oh yeah, they get date graped.
Great. Yep.
Yeah. The victims then develop a strong need to mate and start a family. They get the horny.
Yeah,
they get diagnosed with the
they're
horny.
just like, I don't know why, but I just must mount.
Is this a Blue Chew ad?
Yes, it must be. Yeah.
Must
Today's
spread
sponsor.
my seed. Yeah. Do you want your lava to look like this? Or like this? After finding a partner, the genetic material is not only passed to the descendants, but also to any sexual partner they procreate with. So, yeah.
AIDS.
Space AIDS.
Yeah.
It's really spreading the seeds.
Spades.
It's more like crabs.
If you're going the insect
Bug
route,
joke.
yeah.
Bug joke, yeah.
I thought we finished with Slanesh.
Yeah. These are my Genestealer boys. The descendants of each generation look more and more human than the one before them, until it reaches a point when the hybrid generations produce pure strain Genestealers, who then spread and continue the cycle.
So, okay, so do they go to the planets before the Tyranids do?
Yeah,
Yes.
like hundreds of years before.
Oh, okay.
There are
They're like
Genestealers.
yeeted in multiple directions.
There are Genestealers on like 90% of the planets. For every one that's eradicated, there's probably like 6 to 12 that aren't found.
Okay. So it's not, because that's what I was like wondering, like, do the Tyranids go in and wipe out the planet and then the Genestealers come in after and then...
No,
like,
the Genestealers go,
so they go
generations
first.
ahead. Yeah.
Okay. And then they, like, pretty much prep, like, well, by
They
the
prepare
sounds
the
of it...
planet for them. It's probably
Yeah,
the
they're
best way to say
preparing
it.
the planet for the Tyranids, because isn't the Tyranids...
I'm
don't
trying to
they
avoid
feed
giving
off...
answers because I don't want to take it away
No,
from you.
yeah,
either.
but so we'll get into all
Yeah,
that. We'll just,
but
so
I know they feed off, like,
the biomass.
Think of them
biomass,
as
so-
face huggers.
Yeah,
It's
so
probably the best way to think about it. They're the scouts that, impregnate the
by the
host.
sounds of
Yeah,
it, the
yeah.
Genestealers
But
are
instead of
like-
it being a singular host, it's a planet.
Yes.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, if they go there first and say the planet's only got 1 billion people and they do this, they could get to 100 billion people, overpopulated the planet, that's more biomass for the Tyranids to
Yeah,
then
so
come and...
I'll get more
That's
into
cool,
it, but
okay.
basically they destabilize planets too.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
thought
all
it was-
about
By
communist
slowly
uprule.
infecting over generations.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it was the other way around. I thought it was, like, they come in after. But yeah,
No,
that's...
when Tyranids leave a planet, there's nothing on it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought,
Nothing-
like,
not
then
even an
they...
atmosphere.
That's why I thought, then the Genestealers come in and, like, make it their own planet, like,
Yeah.
to... But
Well,
yeah,
they do to a degree, but then they leave.
yeah.
Well, yeah, they basically just eat everything. So these established family groups of descendants that they gather in are known as a brood, and can be hundreds or even thousands of hybrids strong. So hybrids are basically the descendants of these infected, of the contagi, and so they look... The first generation looks very, very Tyranid-like. And then
Yeah.
they get progressively more humanoid
And then it
until
loops
the
back around
fifth
again.
generation, which they give birth to pure strain Genestealers.
So when you said that they evolve over generations, you weren't wrong.
No,
That's what
yes,
it is, yeah.
yeah.
The brood, you say?
And also on top of that, you got to remember hive cities, how big they are, like billions of people living on that planet, and how big these buildings are in these cities. Very easy to hide.
Well, that was my very next line.
Sorry,
Is they
mate.
take up residence in the underhives, sewers, and underground in mines beneath imperial worlds.
Hang on, I wanted to say one joke about the brood. So is it like called Gangrel? There's like one person that's watching this or listening to this that will understand my joke about Gangrel. It's a wrestling thing. You just
Okay,
keep going.
alright.
You keep going.
Yeah.
The brood is a wrestling thing, anyway.
So
anyways.
these groups are often made up of slaves or the working class, who are treated terribly on most imperial worlds, and worked to death out of sight of the wealthy upper class. These broods are usually led by the Genestealer who began it all, who will then
Gangrel.
who will then become what is known as a brood lord or a patriarch. So
But yeah,
unlike
remember
other
that
two,
Patriarch and Brood Lord, and remember these guys would give Space Marines a run for their money.
oh,
right.
absolutely, they can. Their claws can tear straight through like Terminator plate. They are arguably stronger than your average space
And when we
marine.
watch Angels of Death, you'll understand.
Yeah.
When you, like, size-wise, are they around the same as, like, a space
Bigger than
marine?
Marines.
Oh, they're bigger than Marines?
Well,
Yeah,
like,
so-
they grow bigger than Marines.
No,
probably
yeah,
the best way
they
to say
are
it.
bigger than.
They can grow into it, yeah.
So, from Space Marine 2, if you're looking more at like the ones with like whips and like the bigger ones,
Oh,
they're
yeah,
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
size. So they're a little bit bigger than a Space Marine.
I would say that or Lictor size, probably.
Yeah, about that.
It also always dependent on what kind of cult you're talking about as well.
Yeah.
True.
Anyways, continue, my friend.
Yes.
Sorry, we're getting involved in the episode you care about.
Yeah. No, just shut up and listen. No, I'm kidding.
No, now. I'm going to revolt.
They, unlike other Tyranids, are independent of the hive mind. So if you remember from the Tyranid episode, Tyranids are basically linked through synaptic links that are all controlled by a hive mind. They
The
don't
hive
have
mind,
individual thoughts.
And then the hive mind, if you destroy the hive mind, you'll destroy all
Yes.
Tyranids linked to
But
it.
these are actually independent with their own thoughts. And then they create their own psychic links within their brood to lead the cult in its endeavors from the shadows.
Yeah.
So if you just like, so,
They have their own separate channel.
You
So
kill
they-
the patriarch, they lose the brood mind.
oh, okay. So if you still kill the head, the patriarch, you would still destroy all the gene stealers
No,
that
no,
are connected
so-
to it.
No,
you-
they don't die.
No.
They just wouldn't lose their control over them.
So, for example, in Fist of the Imperium, where they kill the Brood Lord, they lose their connection to each other, and some of them actually come out of the trance like, what have we done? Like, you know, and there was one example where this whole mob of previous, like, I would say gene stealers or people that were under their control chased after the what's the one with the bald head?
Most of them.
No, I mean the one with the girl that usually is the girl model, the female model that.
The
it's like-
Magus.
Magus, that's it. They chased after the
You're
Magus
talking
and
about the
killed it
psychic
for making him do things that they didn't want to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
But they were still gene stealers, like biologically, but
Yeah.
there was no.
Oh no, the biological ones generally wouldn't do that. It would be
Okay.
brood brothers.
Ah, okay.
So they're the ones that are hypnotized. So the leaders under the patriarch are known as the Brood Coven, made up of individuals who are either a Primus or a Magus, as Blake just mentioned. So Primus are the inspirational war leaders and tacticians, and the Magus are psychers that largely utilize hypnosis on key individuals who serve a greater purpose for the Brood.
Join my cult.
Gotcha.
Yes. Well, the ones who don't join willingly.
Yeah, exactly.
They are called cults because they follow a religion worshipping a god, or gods, but one main god who goes by many names. My favorite that he's known by is the Many-Armed Emperor.
How many arms? Many.
Many arms.
Oh,
Or Four-Armed Emperor, which is actually its own cult.
but aren't they all got 4 arms?
Yes, but this is the Great Devourer.
Ah, gotcha.
Yes, which is actually the Tyranid hive mind
Yeah.
that they're seeing as a god. Who is then drawn to these imperial worlds by the psychic resonance of the increasing population of Genestealer cults. Their ultimate goal is to overthrow the ruling population and prepare the world for their god to arrive and bring them ultimate salvation. Or at the very least, destabilize the world so that they can't mount an attack against the Tyranids when they arrive.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And it is known as a plan generations in the making. Or as
Yep.
I like to say, eat the rich. You might be wondering how these cults gather up a population to try and overthrow their imperial overlords on a planet. Well, that's because the Imperium doesn't treat their human population very well.
Yeah, usually the Imperium does it for them.
Yeah. So we'll probably do a video on how terrible life is for the average human on any imperial world or hive city.
I was thinking about this the other day, like, that would be really interesting to see, like, because you hear about, like, what the Space Marines and everything do,
Yeah.
but, like, it'd be interesting to see, like, just a
I
normal
will say,
person.
it really, there are different classifications of world, but you can genuinely say that if you live in a hive city, you're pretty screwed. Or a
Even
hive world.
even agri worlds.
And depending on the
Because of
agri-world as well.
the tithe demand on most worlds, even like the nicest of worlds, you live in a shit job.
Yeah.
So like you'd basically do backbreaking work all week, 16 hours a day, to spend all your money on recycled food and water that has probably already gone through hundreds of other people first.
Or a rent for a shoebox, probably.
Yummy.
Yeah.
Under that,
yeah. So they literally eat recycled shit and piss. So convincing the populace to rise up against the tyranny of the Imperium isn't a hard task.
In saying that, but, I mean, it could be worse. It could be a service, like one of those,
Servitor.
yeah, where you're, like, just opening and closing doors all day.
Then you don't have to eat.
True.
My worries are over.
Yeah.
True. But I think I'd rather just open and close doors than eat shit and piss all day.
Yeah, pretty much.
Be honest as well, spacefaring people do that. They recycle that stuff because they need to.
And
but,
also-
but not on the planet, though.
But
Yeah.
also, working 16 hours, you're working as much as a servitor pretty much is anyway, except that you are working with dangerous machinery that's likely to take a limb.
I think we talked about this as well in an episode where I said that Slanesh is able to get people through because, like, you know, through desire. And this guy was saying that living on this world is so horrible that, you know, the only breaks he gets is when the machine breaks down and he has to wait for the servitors to fix it, or he gets an extra half hour of sleep. That's his version of pleasure. So that's what we're talking about here. So, like, how hard these worlds are
Yeah.
on the
Yes,
populace.
people are miserable. That's why they always sign. That's why they have no issue having people sign up for the Astra Militarum.
Yeah.
Because being shot in a war is a lot easier than living on this world.
Yeah.
So the cults are mainly made up of descendants of those originally infected by the Genestealer, but are also joined by normal citizens in the revolution, and usually utilize weapons or tools that they have access to, like mining lasers, rock saws, and detonation charges.
So when you look at a Genestealer model and it looks like a hardware worker, it's probably because he was.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they stockpile anything that they can get their hands on, from like, you know, basic like guns, like auto stubs and things like that, crude firearms, stolen weaponry. They're stored away over time until they're ready for the revolution.
So they're almost like orcs, where they like will just pillage, like.
They'll just
but they're-
grab whatever they can
But
and
they're
use
actually
whatever.
smart.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Whereas orcs like just like make it up and it will happen. Whereas
Yeah.
the Genestealers actually are like half intelligent.
It's like a war,
Yes.
war of attrition, essentially.
Yeah.
And they also have awesome units that ride around on motorbikes with sniper rifles.
Oh, I'd like to
never
point out as well,
seen- I've
that's
never
why a
seen
lot
the
of Genestealers
vehicles.
try and get into the military or the administratum, is so they can have access to those weapons.
Yes.
And,
Yeah. So the later generations of these broods, because they look more human, sometimes infiltrate other areas like politics, police, or the Imperial Guard. So they remain hidden assets to the cult, spreading the good word, collecting information, or stockpiling stuff, as Blake said, to help their brood prepare to rise up. They often have them in like key areas, like the fuel storage on a planet, and they'll have like the dock worker that like looks after that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, everyone will think, oh yeah, he's a really hard-working lad, you know. And then one day they walk into work and he's planted detonation charges on the fuel storage to like
destroy
cripple
it.
the entire
Yeah.
like world. Yeah.
Something like that.
Secret tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slanash's tunnel.
When the Tyranids arrive at the planet, either after the uprising or sometimes during, they then proceed to do what Tyranids do and eat everything, bringing the Genestealer cults their salvation in the form of having their biomass collected and made into a higher being.
So when you're saying, I know this may be explained later, but like when you're saying that they will go onto a planet and like make it reproduce and like make as many people as it can, is it that biomass is what they're actually like looking for, or is it?
Yes, because the more biomass they consume, the more Tyranids they can create.
And that's the bigger light. So like if you get a planet that's
Oh no, so the biomass isn't the light that they're looking for.
It's the minds that are in, like, the amount of people. Well, I would say the patriarch, like,
because if you're like populating a planet full of like you're populating with Genestealers, like you're making more Genestealers through like
Yeah.
through generations and
Yeah.
stuff, that would then increase the light, I
well,
guess. So.
exactly.
So they go towards the light of the Genestealer cults because they're easy targets that they can collect biomass to keep fueling.
Yeah.
If there were no Genestealers, they would just go from planet to planet collecting the biomass, and it would be like a
good-
slug. You know,
a
they'd
good way
have
of
to
a good way of thinking about it is it's like they're Astronomicon.
which they're also drawn by the Astronomicon.
They are, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that does make like I was like that is very
Because the thing
interesting.
is that I'm not sure if we mentioned it in the Tyranid episode, but they don't have faster than light travel. Tyranids just go.
They just slowly travel in there. Like
They use the
living
gravitational
ships.
pull of planets to slingshot them to the next place.
Yeah, like what we do now.
Yeah,
So they don't have.
they can't travel through. They can get into the warp, but they don't travel through it. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
they-
if they're sucked in by
Exactly.
like
I
a
was gonna
warp or
say
something.
they're traveling along and there's a warp like entry.
you can
like
find
they
them in the
might
warp, but
fall
they don't
in.
travel.
They've got
through
no
it.
interest in like the warp because it doesn't have biomass. They're not corporeal forms.
They try and eat a demon, it'll just disappear in a hatch.
Oh,
Yeah, they don't like
That's
it-
what I was
they don't
gonna
like chaos.
ask. Like, so they don't go after
They don't like chaos because it doesn't.
demons.
Yeah,
Like,
there's no benefit to them.
No. So yeah, the biggest threat to Tyranids is actually chaos.
And would you argue Necrons too? Because of Necrodermis?
No, because it's still biomass. It's living metal.
Fair enough.
I would say that it still would be like good for them.
Yeah, so
Although I
arguably
didn't
chaos.
see anything on them actually interacting with Necrons in my research. I don't think that Necrons and Tyranids have actually interacted.
Do you think they avoid each other?
I mean, besides like Infinite and the Divine, because you know
True, they came across that
there
Genestealer cult.
and they were just like, fuck it, let's dip.
There's a moment where two Necrons are like, watching a show, and then all of a sudden the show is like taken over by Genestealers, and one of the Necron turns to the other and he's like, "You just gave us box seats to a coup." And he's
To a
like,
coup!
and he's like, "Yeah, the reviews were quite nice." It's super funny.
Oh yeah.
You need
absolutely
to.
one of my all-time favorite books.
One of mine
Infinite
too, and I'm not
Divine.
even. I'm not even a huge Necron fan. It's one of my
Oh,
favorites.
I am a huge Necron
You should.
fan.
You should listen to it because the voice acting next
I
level.
like that you said listen to it because you know that I wasn't going to read it.
Well, no, because
We know you're not even
because
going
the
to
voice
listen to it either.
No, because the voice acting is like next level and it makes
Yeah.
it funny. Anyways, Genestealer.
Yes. There are some other notable positions in the Brood that serve different purposes, such as Nexuses, who provide tactical support to the Primuses, who are the like war leaders.
Yep. Gangrel. Yep.
Yeah. Sanctuses are specialist assassins.
Yeah.
You have Locuses, which are bodyguards. Clamovises, who preach the word of the cult.
Was that the model
And-
I got you, the Clamovises?
Yeah, and they foil enemy communications. So they will be the ones who situate up in like the array towers or like the
Or satellites.
yeah,
whatever.
the Vox channel systems, and they'll shut it off when it comes time to like call for
Because
support.
placing them in key positions as well. You got to think about it like a spy network as well, like James Bond a little
They're
bit.
very spy-like.
Yeah, because
So
they're
this is
intercepting
subterfuge.
communications. They're like, oh, okay, these reinforcements
Yeah.
are coming in. Hey guys, these reinforcements are coming in.
So like if a planet has like 10,000 base RBDs, so like police guards, basically, you need a way to get around that because the general population with mining lasers and like stop signs.
So you
can't,
divert them over
like-
there, or you put their patrols over here, or you put ones over here. That you
Yeah,
know.
or suddenly none of their vehicles work because your engineers have like disabled all of your vehicles, so you can't get around
Or
the
you
planet.
put one squad over here that you do trust because you know they're Genestealers, but you know this one isn't.
And because the brood mind all works together and connects, all of these people across the planet will work at the same time to like switch off the lights, turn on this, so that it all happens at once when the revolution starts.
It's almost
Yeah.
like those what were those like?
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
No, like the dances that people would do, like where you'd be like in the middle of like a mall, and then all of a sudden
flash mobs.
flash mobs.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like everyone knows, and the people that don't know what's going on, they're like, "What the hell is?"
That's
happening
actually a
here?"
really
Like,
good way of putting
It's
it.
a
Yeah.
really good way of putting it. Yeah.
Flash mob Genestealers.
So you also have
Kid Bash.
Yeah.
you have aberrants, who are monstrous giant hybrids with overpowered physical strength that act as shock troops, and you have gene alchemists known as biophaguses, who administer aid and other scientific bolsters to the army of the Genestealer Cults, as well as creating deadly toxins and poisons, just to slip in the water. Or, in one of the stories, basically there's a world, and their main export to the Imperium is like medical aid.
Yeah.
And so the Genestealer biophages basically put their DNA into so you get like a vaccine shot
You could
as
be
you're going into
a-
the Imperial Guard.
You
and
could be on
end
the
up-
other side of the galaxy,
Yeah.
and you inject yourself with a stim. Genestealer.
you are now a contagi.
Yeah.
Damn,
Yeah.
they are sneaky,
They're
Yeah.
sneaky and they spread.
like space aids.
Yeah, well, I mean, after the Great Rip happens, we talked about,
Oh, yeah.
the blooming flower. The Great Rift.
Okay. Yeah.
So, in like more modern times,
Yeah, yeah,
where,
yeah,
like
yeah.
Genestealers uprising.
Sorry, I was
been
just very
more
confused.
modern.
Sorry.
There are a lot of ships that have left planets.
The blooming
Trying-
flower.
Continue.
They try to like evacuate to get away from planets that are close to the Great Rift,
Yeah.
and so Genestealers love stowing aboard these ships that are going from planet to planet because then they'll end up on another planet
Then they can
and
spread.
then they can spread it.
They
So
take advantage of
we
the
can-
panic.
Yeah, and they're sneaky like that.
Sneaky.
Which is why Death Watch are working overtime, and the Inquisition as well, Auto Xenos, trying to find all of these little cults before the Tyranids like lock onto it as well.
Yeah, at trying and failing.
Whether or not you're trying to like instigate me, like I don't care. Like they probably are failing. I don't care.
No, it's just factual.
Okay.
Just because of the nature of Genestealers and how they like work.
Just because of
They're-
how many there are, yeah. On top
and,
of that,
and how many there are, yeah, and how like generations later they're just spewing out more.
and how easily they'd be able to like infiltrate that, because all they got to do is like just find some way to get their DNA inside you, whether that be a
A
grape
gene-
rape.
No, they call it a Genestealer's kiss because they insert it through the tongue.
Yeah, but didn't you say
They
you
eat
could even
ass.
do it through the blood? Like,
Oh yeah, so you can just any DNA
that's-
that gets into your system.
but that's where the
basically.
biologist comes in, or whatever
Yeah.
it is, comes into play, where they modify it to make it more accessible in
Yeah,
that way.
but
Yeah.
but the Genestealer, because they use like psychic hypnosis, you'll just be like walking down a dark corridor in a ship or in a hive city, and there'll just be like orange eyes there, and
then
like
that's all
you
you
just
remember.
hypnotized, and you start walking towards it, and they give you a little kiss, And in that little kiss, they deposit their genetic material inside you.
And now you go work for them.
And then you go out and you start rooting everybody you can. And everyone you root gets turned, and all your children, because they always produce children because of the tyrannid DNA.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna get me too'd in the Genestealers.
Well, the Death Watch is trying, but you can't keep up with them.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that, as well as that, in the Renegades book for the Emperor's Children, the Emperor's Children hear a hail from a nearby planet, and the planet is under attack by Genestealers, or because of the revolution, and like that, they all switch, the servants of all these nobles, and they arrive there, the Emperor's Children, and they stop the rebellion from happening, and then they take the Brood Lord and then secretly put him in a cryo state. Well, the Lord of the Emperor's Children does, and then like the rebellion just keeps picking up again. It takes a couple of years, but it gets back to it again because it's very resilient. And then the Emperor's Children Lord was just like, screw it, and then just like threw the Brood Lord in there, and he's like, I hate all of yous anyway, and then he bailed, and then the Tyranids came.
So there's another interesting story where an Inquisitor goes with like a kill team of Death Watch, and they go to a planet to investigate what is actually a Genestealer uprising. He goes silent for like a couple of days, and then the last transmission is like, oh no, everything's all good. Don't worry about it. There's nothing like untoward on this planet.
Don't come look for me.
And then they never see him again. Because all of the Death Watch and him were like killed, but he was hypnotized. He was hypnotized first
to be able to
release it.
That.
So the Imperium never sent any backup.
I don't think Genestealers can take over a Space Marine, can they?
Yeah. Oh no, genetically?
Genetically, no.
Absolutely, probably.
I don't think so. I think the anatomy of a Space Marine would stop it. Because there's no real connection to it. Like, there's no records of a Space Marine being taken over, is there?
No, there's no records of it, but they do it to a lot of other Xenos, as I'm about to like go into.
Oh no, yeah. I don't remember anything about a Space Marine being taken over. Oh, like hypnosis, obviously. But
hypnosis, but they probably just kill them.
Yeah, because they can't do it because the body would reject it, wouldn't they?
I don't know if it would reject it. I don't think there's anything on it. GW probably hasn't even written anything about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say that they can or can't. It's just that there is no writing of it actually happening.
I'm sure there's a fanfic of it.
Yeah. A Death Watch being bent over while a Genestealer eats his ass.
Yep.
I didn't want that in my head.
The bloomin' flower.
So I got another quote here. The Imperial oppressors claim to hear the voice of their carrion god. They are liars. Only the true star gods speak to their faithful, and only we, their devoted, are so blessed as to hear their words. It's totally factual. Although humans are most commonly the species targeted by Genestealers, they have also injected their DNA into other Xenos species and developed broods in their worlds. These include Orcs, Kroot, Eldari, and Tau. The Orcs, though, have proven troublesome as Genestealer hosts, for they can sense a wrongness in those affected, something that disturbs the strange psychic gestalt of the greenskin mind.
Yeah, wouldn't they like...
They pick up on the fact that the greenskin is too mild-mannered, and then they beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, they're not aggressive enough.
Yeah, they'd be like, you're a weird boy, and like...
Yeah,
but not the weird boy we like.
Yeah.
Well, they don't even like their own weird boys.
I don't like you, weird boy.
Like, I don't like the fact that you're not screaming at me, like, and they're the first ones to die, so they don't take place, and
they're not aggressive enough.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
isn't it because orcs? They're just like basically like mushrooms. Like
yes.
So would they still have the biomass?
Oh yeah, they're still the biomass. They still eat them.
See, this is my argument for why Space Marines would be able to be reproduced like this too, because there's orcs reproduce via spores.
Yeah.
But they can be infected with this DNA.
But because they eventually turn into meat. Like, the fungus at some point turns into muscle and sinew.
Yes, but they don't reproduce the same way humans do.
Yeah.
But the infected DNA can still be put into them, and then they still reproduce via the Genestealers the same way. So I would argue that a Space Marine probably could, even though there isn't history of it. Because
I would argue that because their body can filter out poisons, and
that's what I was going to say.
It's not poison though.
It is an outside force.
No, it's actually just straight DNA.
But wouldn't the body?
Argue that's the same thing because everything's DNA.
No, but like the Emperor's children are able to change their DNA.
Yeah.
And
Because-
so why wouldn't like Tyrannid ever evolving DNA be able to like change and work its way into a helix? If they can do it with orcs and they can do it with other like xenospecies, and they can obviously very easily do it with humans. Why wouldn't they be able to do it with space marines?
I would argue that there's more reasons why it can't as opposed to it would. And I would argue that maybe that because of the way that the gene seed works, and on top of that, their own natural body can filter out that kind of stuff and stop other things
They
from
can
infecting
filter
it.
out toxins to a degree, but they like genetic material. I don't know because there's nothing actually on it, so we're just
And we're also
speculating.
Maybe
talking,
they've
we're also
never- maybe
talking here
they've-
like we're geneticists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they've never, like, it's just never happened yet. So that's why it's not. Yeah, maybe they've just not been in so close proximity where they could try to.
I would argue they can be puppeted with hypnosis, but I don't think like
Oh, yeah,
on a genetic level.
There's
I don't.
stories of them being hypnotized.
On a genetic level, I would struggle with that though, because you also got to remember the gene seed is also from the Primarchs, who can also filter that kind of stuff out. That's my argument. I can't 100% say it for now, and I'm not going to sit here and say that it will never happen. But I'm just saying that I think it's unlikely.
Hey, there
Yeah.
might be somebody.
And that's
in the-
not me. That's not me like saying that like Space Marines are like gods and all that kind of shit. I'm just saying that I doubt it would happen. Because like there's been other instances where, for example, in Enmity Edge, where algae tries to take over the Space Marines, but they can't because their body physiology won't accept it. So they have to literally puppet them in their suits and that's the same thing, almost.
But
to a
it's
degree.
not a disease or anything. It's actual like living tissue that gets inserted into them
Diseases.
that starts to wrap itself around the helix of your DNA and like modify it.
I would argue that your body would still reject it, even more so because it is a biomass as opposed to something that's just a helix.
But there might be something out there that, like,
Again, I'm not
Guys-
saying that's the absolute. I'm just saying that I think it's unlikely,
Yeah, I don't know.
especially Primaris. Firstborn maybe, but like
I think it's definitely like possible. I can like.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not possible,
but
I'm
it
just
is
saying
all-
unlikely.
It is all
conjecture.
speculation because
Conjecture, yeah.
GW's just done nothing about it.
yeah,
It hasn't said one way or the
Hmm.
other, as far as I know.
it could be something they bring out eventually in one of the stories or something that says like, oh, he was the first.
If you have heard of any instances, any
This
books that
is
we
the-
haven't read, please let us know.
Yeah, in the comments, like, because there might be something that has been mentioned about like some
And
some
so-
space marine
Yeah.
that has been turned and then it.
And I don't want you
didn't.
thinking I'm disagreeing with you. I'm just I don't think it's likely.
Well, okay, so moving on, the crew, much like the
Do you know
orcs,
do you know what the crude are?
No, I don't.
they're another xenospecies. They're the Tau. It's below.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, no,
you
I
remember
do
the
know
Crude-
who
the
they
Crude
are.
box that came out
They
recently.
do look like
Like porcupine gorillas.
They look like what's his face from Mass Effect, if I remember right.
yes.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
trying to think of like they look like
But also
lizards, but not like,
bad personality comparison either. They're
No,
pretty
yeah.
much the same.
I do know who you're talking about now. Yep.
Yeah.
So
but
for-
they're a race underneath the Tau banner.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, but they tend to avoid infected members of the society because they can taste pheromones.
Yeah, and they can sense
so they
off meat almost. Yeah.
and so they because they often eat other creatures to gain their intelligence of it. Like their physiology just kind of makes it hard for them to continue spreading because they often are avoided.
Yep.
The Eldari have such lengthy gestation cycles
Mm.
that they are simply not viable biological hosts.
Yeah.
Takes too long for them to have babies.
Yeah. Which is one of the reasons why the old are like arguably a dying race, is because it takes so long for them to have children.
Reproduce. Yeah.
Yeah. Except with Gilliman.
Except with Gilman, of course, yeah.
Waiting on Gilliman, baby.
Yeah. Imagine that. Jesus.
Yeah. Furthermore, the Eldari's psychic abilities are so well developed that
I
they
was
can
gonna
often
say-
see the shadow of the curse even before it can manifest, and avoid it accordingly in affected members of their species.
I was going to say, them all being psychers would see it coming a mile away anyways.
Yeah, yeah. The Tau have a connection with their ethereal caste, which, we'll do a Tau episode eventually. Basically, they're
Prophets
mind
from-
controlled by, like, their ethereal caste, and so there's...
Prophets from Halo.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
they can sense when changes are happening because they kind of already have their own psychic link.
Yep.
And only humanity, so manifold and unruly in its civilizations, has yet proven an ideal host. So I'm just going to rattle off a few of the notable cults that I think are interesting because there's so many of them. There is the Rusted Claw.
That's it.
Probably the one you're thinking of. The Pauper Princes have more of a purple look to them. The Twisted Helix are the ones that are largely biophages. the Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor, the Cult of the Second Son, and the Brotherhood. But we'll have a deep dive into each one of them and probably their own short episodes. I can't go through this episode without mentioning my favourite Genestealer Cult model, though.
Can I guess? Kelamorph.
Yes, it's
There we go.
Kelamorph. He has 3 arms and a revolver in each hand and a Wild Wild West vibe.
Cowboy Genestealer.
Have you seen him?
No, I was trying to think of like, I don't know. If
Imagine Red Dead Redemption 2, but with 3 arms.
I have the model. I'll show you the model after this
Arthur.
episode. Yeah. And there's a little flavor text from his codex that I really like. It says, Kelamorph is a gunfighter who is the living icon of the rebellion, molded to exploit the psyche of fractured human societies. He has whip-fast reactions and hypersensory acuity that lend the Kelamorph lethal reaction speeds and help it unleash withering volleys from its iconic Liberator auto-subs, whose depleted Volonium rounds can punch through tank armor. But yeah, so that's my very brief go over. I love the Genestealer Cult models. I feel like they have their own unique style to them that makes them really interesting.
I'd say they're one of the more original designs.
Absolutely, yeah. Like a lot of the Xenos, they are their own very interesting thing.
other than the Diggy Boys.
I would love to see GW put out more models for them because I think we're all a bit sick of just seeing more Space Marine models while the
for
Xenos get ignored.
I would have
Speak
thought
for
that
yourself.
they would have brought out more when the Tyranid, they've had such a big
You
uprising.
know what I'm
with the
actually more
Tyranids.
worried about? So I'm curious as to why there's not any more in Space Marine 2. Like Genestealer Cults.
Yeah, I'm surprised there aren't.
Yeah. Maybe it might be a future thing, but like
Possibly.
you can already kill like traded guardsmen, so that I don't see why they wouldn't be able to change that model to a Genestealer. For
Well,
example.
one of the updates in the Rogue Trader thing brought in Genestealers.
Yeah, so here's
Yeah.
hoping that that's what might be a new operation or the next part of the game. But like,
Yeah.
it's hard, like it's mentioned as well in the data slates that the Genestealers, but not actually in the game.
You don't
which-
actually see them, yeah.
No, yeah, I would like
Yeah.
to see that.
Yeah. The lore around Genestealer Cults is really cool. They have a lot of great little stories that I didn't have time to go into. Like, there's so many cool stories. Not the least of which is the book we read, A Day of
Yeah.
Ascension. It's a fantastic book.
So the books we recommend for Genestealers would be Day of Ascension.
Day of Ascension.
Is there any other books that you've read with Genestealers?
There's
in them?
more like they play a part in other stories.
Yeah.
Not like centered specifically around them.
Because the only ones I've read is that there are the enemies and the Fist of the Imperium, which is I would say the second best book to read because you see a lot of it from their point of view as well.
Yeah.
A little bit of Renegade, but it's mainly Emperor's Children, but like they play a part in it. That's about it as far as I know.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of like smaller Inquisitor stories and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sure there is, I just haven't read them all yet.
Yeah, I think they're in one of the like Death Watch books as well.
I wouldn't be sure.
Yeah. Hopefully we can touch back more on these other stories in other episodes that we do. For me, what I really love about them is they walk the line of being like grimdark without being cartoonishly evil or trying to be too edgy like the Drukhari.
Yeah.
And they provide a good commentary on life now, but also what it's like in the Imperium for everyday humans.
I would argue as well that if the Imperium wasn't so hard on its populace, there would be less purchase for the Genestealers to get into it.
Yeah, it's mainly
Yeah.
because the Imperium sucks so much.
Yeah, because like you've got the two pathways that the Genestealers go into the cults is the genetics side and then the ethics side, or like the repressed feelings of the populace. So if you remove one of them, all they've got is left is genetics.
Genetic. So is there anything that is like their main adversary, like their main
Don't really have one.
who they go over, or they just go after everyone? Like they don't really.
Well, they kind of go
Oh, I've
after.
seen
Well,
that.
attack.
Yeah, that's the
they attack
Kelamorph.
everybody, but they plant themselves mainly on human worlds
Okay.
because that human populace is the best place
I
to
suppose
do it.
that's the best spot for like
But
the
they will-
Humans love
biomass.
mating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But they will, there's nothing stopping them from attacking others.
Yeah.
And like
Oh,
on the
the
table.
Tyranids love the orcs too.
Yeah,
So there's almost like a standstill between orcs and Tyranids because orcs constantly reproduce so quickly and you can't get rid of them.
and the orcs also get
'Cause
stronger
that's
the
who
more.
I
They-
would
they
have
also
thought,
get bigger
that's
as
who
they
I
fight.
would have thought that they would have gone after more is like the orcs. Like
Well, because it's so nearly impossible to eradicate orcs, it's also almost impossible to eradicate all the Tyranids. They end up at a standstill. But yeah, the Tyranids love it because the orcs get bigger, they constantly produce, and then they keep gobbling them up. And so the Tyranids numbers get bolstered by all the biomass they're eating, but the orcs get stronger because of the constant fighting. So they're basically like...
It's called the Octarius War, and it actually happened, where they were fighting each other to the point... Oh no, the Tyranids won.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like still happening on other planets in the Octarius system. I think the main war, like... was won, but I'm pretty sure, aren't they still fighting on like several planets?
The fighting's always still happening, but I think they won the overall, and Gaskell and the orcs had to bail.
Yeah. And then basically you have super juiced up Tyranids now because of it.
Basically, it happened because an Inquisitor was like, I can't take on the Tyranids, and I can't take on the orcs. I'll make them take on each other. But the problem was that they were making themselves stronger, and he's like, damn, I messed up bad.
Oopsie. And that was after he was already like excommunicado from the Inquisition as well, because he went around just exterminating worlds to try and slow the Tyranid fleet.
That's Krypton you're talking of, I think.
Yeah, it's the same one.
Was it the same
guy?
one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the same guy did it because he was the one who was like, oh, well, it's...
Wow, alright then. Damn.
Yeah.
Messed up bad.
Yeah. Because he and some of the Death Watch that were still loyal to him, even after he was excommunicated, are the ones who went and did that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they captured a Genestealer after suffering many losses, and then like threw it at the planet, put the orcs on it,
tried setting them that way,
and then like then it started and the Tyranids arrived.
Great.
Yeah, and that's my Genestealer episode. So I hope you have a new appreciation for them. You weren't too far off what you kind of thought at the beginning.
Kind of.
But hearing more about it now, has your opinion of them changed or your outlook?
You want a Genestealer kiss?
No. Hey.
Like I need
what they call it an omnipositor. So their tongue basically has a barb with like a tube inside that they...
Oh yeah, it's very face hugger.
So is it rib for whose pleasure?
Nobody's.
But you don't remember it the next day is the only downside.
I'm pretty sure
It's very Cosby. Very Cosby.
You'd still be sore.
It's a little bit P. Diddy.
Yeah.
It's Gangrel with a bunch of Cosbys and P. Diddy's.
The only thing I was going to ask is, so with the playing on like the model, like is there a lot of models for Genestealers? Like are they popular on the tabletop? They're more of like a lore?
They're popular because they're good at the meta at the moment. Ish. But like they've kind of they were the shit last year.
Their meta is because you can take Astra Militarum units.
Okay.
Yeah. And they have a lot of sneaky abilities and stratagems.
A point that I didn't touch on. The non-infected humans that are sometimes either hypnotized or just like swayed by like a clamavis are called Brood Brothers. So they're basically friends of the cult, but they're not...
They're not of the Brood, but they're Brood Brothers.
Yeah, so they're of the cult, but they're not infected or contagious.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so like, they sway like a whole population. Because there's like similarities to which they play on a lot in the Day of Ascension book between their god and the god emperor. Some people can be worshipping...
Just like, you worship the Emperor? Yeah, I worship the Emperor.
I worship the Emperor.
And then he goes home, and for some reason this Emperor has 4 arms.
Yeah, that's a really weird like painting of the Emperor. Why does he have multiple arms? And why is he surrounded by stars?
It happened in the Fist of the Imperium when they came through, and they're just like, they looked at the Emperor, their visage of the Emperor in the tunnels, but it was like, had 4 arms and like a toothy maw. And the Death Watch was like, burn it.
Yeah.
So they're not really popular on the tabletop.
I would say they're pretty popular.
They need more models, right? So they have...
That's what I was going to say. Like, are they popular as far as like...
I would say they're popular, but they also need more models.
Yeah, because they've got 2 like battle lines that you can run either like as like different types basically, and then they have like 1 dedicated transport, a couple of allied units, and like...
But because
7 characters or something like that.
But because of that, you could buy 3 combat patrols and still viable to take that to the... So you actually do get a cost for your money, but the problem is that when they bring out more models, then they'll be like...
Because I have like... Because with Leviathan, I got like the Tyranids and stuff, and I know that I can run some of my... Like, I did buy some Genestealers, I don't know what they're called, but I bought a Genestealer box that you could run with the Tyranids. It's just fascinating now, like, knowing the lore side of it, like that
Originally, Genestealers were a model or a small unit that you could take with Tyranids.
Well, there still is a Tyranid model called Genestealers.
But now they're their own army. So it was like back in the day where you could take AdMech in with Imperial Guard, but now AdMech have their own army.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to run Genestealers in your Genestealer cult, you have to buy Tyranid models called Genestealers, and you can run them in GSC.
Because that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Okay, that might be what I've got then. Cause
Yeah.
I did buy them like when the Tyranids, like all their new models were coming out. I bought like Genestealers, and I just thought
I
that
think
that was.
they came out the same time as Custodes came out. Because there was that box where you could fight them both with each other.
Yeah, they're pretty new.
Newish.
Yeah.
Like
10 years new for GW.
I mean, no, I think they're newer than 10 years, but yeah, they're not like
Aren't they, like,
Votan new,
ninth?
but they're...
Aren't they like 9th edition or something? Like I know I know
Ninth, if I remember right.
Tyranids
because they
came out like
Yeah.
big in 10th.
So we're
Yeah.
talking like
So I think
3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
But I hope you guys have enjoyed the Genestealer Cult episode. Stay tuned for more Xenos.
Yep.
Did you have any other
Eventually-
questions before we finish?
No, I was just gonna say, put in the comments like what if you have like a faction that you want us to talk about. I mean, we've got the next couple sort of already pre-organized, but like if you have a particular faction,
Yeah,
I
let us know
we're-
what you want us doing.
We're
if
probably
we-
gonna
what we
get
could do
yelled
better.
at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
the
as
World
long as it
Eaters?
isn't Blood Angels.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway.
I'm not
No,
going.
not blood, not blood angels, not wellies. Anybody who's red.
Yeah. I mean, fuck.
But yeah, our next video will be on the Lion and the Dark Angels.
But yeah, any suggestions? Put them in the
Yeah, let
comments.
us know.
If we got anything wrong, he was in charge.
We did it. Yeah.
Blame him.
Yeah.
Manchurian candidate right here.
I dare you to fact check me on
No,
that. I did a lot of research on this. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe.
Yes, do all that stuff.
Go
We've got
read Day of Ascension.
we have an
Day of Ascension, Fist of
Instagram.
the Imperium, maybe.
No,
Renegades.
just Day of Ascension. Fuck, this is Space Marine books.
We
Half
do,
of it is, you know.
Yeah, no, but you always have to bring your Space Marines into it.
And
we do have an Instagram and a TikTok and stuff like that.
apparently.
Do we? Where can you find our... No, just
Down
kidding. Just
in
look
the
up Pub for
description.
Heretics. You'll find
Dean-
us. We're the only
Dean
one.
came in sideways, segue.
Yeah, no, we're the only Pub for Heretics.
See you around.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
listening.
Have a good day, guys.
For the people.
For the pigeons.